A dimly lit cafe in Edinburgh. Rain taps softly against the windows. A young woman sits alone, scribbling on scraps of paper. Beside her, a sleeping baby in a stroller. She has no stable income, no certainty, no future in sight. But inside her mind, a magical world is being born. This is the story of a woman who had almost nothing yet would go on to become the richest author the world has ever seen. There are stories that entertain us, and then there are stories that inspire us so deeply that they feel almost unreal. The life of J.K. Rowling belongs to the second category, a journey so dramatic that if it were written as fiction, it might seem exaggerated. Yet every part of it is real. It is a story of loss, struggle, rejection, resilience, and ultimately, extraordinary triumph. Before the world knew her as one of the most successful authors in history, Joanne Rowling was simply a woman trying to survive. Born in 1965 in England, she grew up with a love for storytelling. From a young age, she would write imaginative tales, often sharing them with her younger sister. Writing was not just a hobby for her, it was a way to make sense of the world, a way to escape into something bigger than reality. But like many dreams, it seemed distant and uncertain as she grew older. Her early adult life did not hint at the success that was to come. She worked various jobs, searching for direction while carrying within her a quiet desire to become a writer. Life, however, began to take a difficult turn. One of the most devastating moments came when her mother passed away after a long illness. This loss deeply affected her, leaving an emotional scar that would later influence the themes of grief and longing in her writing. As if that were not enough, her personal life became increasingly complicated. She moved to Portugal, where she got married and had a daughter. But the marriage did not last. It ended in divorce, leaving her as a single mother in a foreign country. Eventually, she returned to the United Kingdom with her infant daughter, carrying little more than hope and determination. At that point, her life had reached what she later described as rock bottom. She was unemployed, struggling financially, and battling depression. She relied on government assistance to survive. Some days, even basic necessities felt like a challenge. Yet, in the middle of this hardship, something extraordinary was quietly taking shape. Years earlier, during a delayed train journey from Manchester to London, an idea had come to her, an idea that would eventually change everything. She imagined a young boy who did not know he was a wizard, a boy who would one day discover a hidden world full of magic, danger, and wonder. That boy was Harry Potter. That moment on the train became the seed of a story that would grow into a global phenomenon. But at the time, it was just an idea, fragile and incomplete. Over the years, she began to develop it further, creating a detailed world filled with characters, rules, and history. This world became her refuge, a place where she could escape from the difficulties of her real life. Back in Edinburgh, she started writing seriously. Often, she would take her daughter to a cafe, order a single cup of coffee, and write while the child slept beside her. The warmth of the cafe was sometimes more inviting than her own home, and it became her unofficial workspace. There, among the quiet hum of conversations and the clinking of cups, she poured her imagination onto paper. Writing under such conditions was not easy. There were moments of doubt, moments when giving up would have been the simplest option. But she held on. She believed in the story she was telling, even when everything else in her life seemed uncertain. Slowly, page by page, the manuscript for her first book began to take shape. Finally, after years of effort, she completed the manuscript for Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. It was a moment of hope, a turning point, or so it seemed. She began sending the manuscript to publishers, expecting that someone would recognize its potential. Instead, she faced rejection. One publisher after another turned her down. Some believed the story was too long for children. Others thought it would not sell. In total, she received numerous rejections, each one a blow to her confidence. For someone already struggling with financial and emotional challenges, this could have been the final straw. But she refused to give up. Persistence became her greatest strength. She continued to send her manuscript to different publishers, holding on to the belief that someone, somewhere, would see what she saw in her story. And eventually, that belief paid off. A small publishing house finally agreed to publish her book. It was not a grand deal. In fact, she was advised to find a day job because children's books rarely made significant money. But it was a beginning, and sometimes that is all it takes. When Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was released in 1997, no one could have predicted what would happen next. At first, it was just another book on the shelf. But then readers began to notice it. Children were captivated by the magical world. Adults found themselves equally drawn in. Word of mouth spread quickly, and the book gained momentum. What followed was nothing short of extraordinary. The story of Harry Potter resonated with millions. It was a tale of friendship, courage, and the battle between good and evil, universal themes that spoke to readers of all ages. Soon, the book was translated into multiple languages and distributed around the world. As the series continued, its popularity grew even further. Each new installment broke records, attracting larger audiences and generating immense anticipation. Midnight book releases became global events, with fans lining up for hours just to be among the first to read the next chapter of the story. The numbers were staggering. The series sold hundreds of millions of copies worldwide, making it one of the best-selling literary works in history. But beyond the numbers, it created something even more significant, a shared cultural experience that connected people across different countries and generations. With success came financial reward. In 2004, J.K. Rowling achieved a milestone that no author had reached before. She became a billionaire, earning her wealth entirely from writing books. It was a remarkable transformation, from living on government assistance to becoming one of the richest authors in the world.
Yet, despite her immense success, she never forgot where she came from. Her past struggles remained an important part of her identity. She often spoke openly about her experiences with poverty and depression, using her story to inspire others. She emphasized that failure was not the end but a necessary step towards success. In fact, she once described failure as something that stripped away the inessential, allowing her to focus on what truly mattered. This perspective became a central theme in her life, a reminder that even the darkest moments can lead to growth and transformation. Her success also allowed her to give back. She became heavily involved in charitable work, donating significant portions of her wealth to various causes. Her efforts focused on helping children, supporting families in need, and addressing social inequalities. In doing so, she turned her personal journey into a source of hope for others. The impact of her work extended far beyond literature. The Harry Potter series was adapted into a successful film franchise, bringing the magical world to life on screen. Theme parks, merchandise, and spin-off works further expanded the universe she had created. What began as an idea on a train evolved into a global phenomenon that touched countless lives. But perhaps the most powerful aspect of her story is not the wealth or the fame. It is the reminder that success is not determined by where you start, but by how you respond to challenges. Her journey shows that it is possible to rise from the lowest points in life. It shows that creativity can flourish even in the face of adversity. And most importantly, it shows that belief both in oneself and in one's ideas can lead to extraordinary outcomes. In the end, the story of J.K. Rowling is not just about becoming the richest author in the world. It is about resilience. It is about perseverance. It is about finding light in the darkest of times and holding on to it until it becomes something real. The magic she created was not limited to the pages of her books. It existed in her journey, in her ability to transform struggle into strength and imagination into reality. And that is perhaps the greatest lesson of all. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones we live ourselves. You've seen what's possible. Now don't miss the next story. Subscribe now.